What's happening, people? It's in my time, which is Eastern Standard Time or Atlantic Standard Time is now 4:09 in the morning. Now, to be honest with you, I didn't plan on doing a stream like this, but I'm going to do a stream. I woke up, checking Twitter. I decided to do this follow up stream on the dog. There's a dog out there that's just going to be barking all night. It wasn't barking before, it just started to bark. So sorry about the dog in the background. Um, I don't know, man. Sometimes you just get adversity for different things, so it is what it is. But I'm about to do this stream with you guys. I really want to talk about addressing the solution to the problem from my last stream. You guys are free to join if you so wish. I'll try and put the link up in a couple seconds so that you guys can join. There's the link. So you guys can, if you want to join as a guest and chop it up with me, that would be cool. It is a weird hour to even be streaming this, so I understand if you guys can't do it right now. You guys will see this video much later, but some of you will see this video now. And if you feel free to hop on as a guest, okay? I see in the guest area, and I'll just pop you in. Otherwise, you can just chop it up in the chat section. I'll try to show you guys comments in the chat section as well, right? All right, so man, got a lot to talk about, but I want to first of all say, really, I just have a heartfelt joy in my heart just seeing certain people and how they respond to certain things. You know, we respond differently to adversity as people, right? And some people succumb to adversity. Some people succumb in different ways. Some people succumb by being depressed. Some people close in on themselves. Some people decide to fight back. Some people, when they face adversity, they crumble. So they start expletives and stuff, and they go nuts. And all of us have kind of gone through each of these phases in our lives as we dealt with adversity. But I was telling you guys this: there's some people who are just they know what to do, they know what to say in adversity. I admire these people, how they are able to still keep more or less their cool, and not only that, but also they're able to respond in an appropriate manner to whatever adversity is facing. I admire those people, and I just want to say I've seen a bunch of people who have been very appropriate in how they respond to things, and I applaud them. And this is what I would aspire to be. And I've seen these people in the Snyder Cut movement as well, and I'm so happy to know that these people are there. And there are several other, release the Snyder Cut, uh, you know, fan page on Twitter is outstanding, more or less. Anyways, let's go to. I'm going to start this off with a piece of scripture. Proverbs 28, verses 1 and 2 comes to mind. I'm going to read it off to you guys so you guys can understand what I'm really saying. So I'm going to go from scripture and then expand and go to the situation that faces us, which is nothing new. This is something that's actually happened before. And I'm also going to talk a little bit about the solutions to those problems, okay? All right. So first and foremost, Proverbs 28, verse 1 says, the wicked run away when no one is chasing, but the godly are as bold as lions. Let me say that again. The wicked run away when no one is chasing them, but the godly are bold as lions. When there is immoral rot within a nation, its government topples easily. But with wise and knowledgeable leaders, there is stability. Remember that. All right, so I'll come back to the scripture as we proceed through this time. I just want to say to you guys that I'm not a perfect person, and I don't really like saying that, but it is what it is. So I make mistakes as a person all the time. And I just want to let you guys know, though, that in this journey of life, certain situations are there so that you can shine out with your best attributes. And sometimes certain situations are there so that you can overcome certain things and become better as a person. I hope in your journey, your life's journey, your hero journey, whatever journey you have, you'll be able to overcome some of the situations that you face. Okay. All right. So, having said all of that, let's get into it. So my last video, I spoke to you guys about how Warner Brothers, why it is they keep on making the same mistakes over and over again. And just to give you the take home message from that video, which you guys can go and actually check out for yourselves so you can understand what's really going on. Warner Brothers is trying to get the problem with Warner Brothers and most corporate businesses is that there's always a conflict between particularly visionary creatives and the business side of the company or business. So what happens is usually a lot of business people who are involved in making the decisions for the business. Okay, and while they may be involved in producing films and produce successful films, it doesn't mean that they understand the creative process as much as they may be seeing it as a bystander or as someone who, you know, is there and experiencing the whole creative process. They're not still doing it. And because they're not doing it, they don't truly appreciate it. And the other thing is, most of these executives, corporate executives, are the whole purpose behind doing what they do, their motivation is to make money. Okay? Their bottom line is money. Whereas creatives' bottom line is not money, but creating a message, something that they want the world to experience. Wow, there was just a tremendous thunderclap there. That they want the world to experience. And, creatives are all about a message of some kind, a story, some kind of value, some kind of intrinsic message that the art is portraying. You will find that the corporate world, the business world, doesn't care anything about that. Okay, they're driven by dollar signs and money. So they're thinking on sometimes a much more complex, in-depth understanding, a comprehensive understanding of maybe an IP or whatever it is. It may not be there. Now, just had another thunder roll, so we're probably going to get a pretty heavy storm coming. Shout out to somebody's viewing this right now at 4 o'clock in the morning. That's very interesting. So I'm just recapping on why it is that you will find sometimes these companies making these strange decisions. It's where their motivation is, okay? So usually you have a clash between the creatives and the executive arm of a company, because, especially a entertainment company, because the executives say, well, you need to do this to have success, right? And we see it in the music industry, and we see it in so many different places, because the business side is looking for a formula that works. And that is the basic problem. The problem is the business side is looking for a formula. The creatives are looking for a fresh new way, a fresh new take on things. And so there's always a clash between that, especially with a visionary, say a visionary director. We've had visionary directors, like I said before, like we've had, of course, one of the greatest visionary directors in comic book history ever, with movies. The great, for some reason, my mind is slipping, but Christopher Reeve's director, the director of Christopher Reeve's for Superman 1978, If you know the name of that person, please put it in the chat section. Because for some reason, I just blanked out on his name. Visionary director. Another DC, I can only talk about DC right now. Another DC visionary director was Tim Burton. Okay. Another visionary director for DC, we all know, was Christopher Nolan. And one of the other visionary directors for DC has been Zack Snyder. Okay. Now, James Gunn has been a visionary director for Marvel in what he did with Guardians of the Galaxy. And, the Russo brothers, to some degree, have been visionary directors for Marvel. They managed to hold on to their job, but James Gunn almost lost his job. Okay. We're going to talk a little bit more about that, too. Here's my point. My point is that it's almost inevitable that a visionary director is going to butt heads with the executives of a company, because the visionary director does not believe in formulas. Okay, the creative process is one in which, if you listen to Ben Affleck talk about it, it's a continuous process. You never arrive anywhere. You never reach there. When you think about the creative process, and if you're somebody who's done any kind of creative process of any kind, you realize there's never a destination. There's always something that can be done. And for those people who know, certain directors, they work all the way up sometimes to the day of release of a film. And even after the day of release, sometimes they're working on stuff, trying to enhance and improve things. And sometimes they work on the film, even after it's come out, on Blu-ray or DVD or whatever, they keep on working on it. So what I'm trying to say to you is it's an ongoing process, the evolution of a story. And even Zack Snyder even said it himself, for those who follow Zack Snyder. He said that, the story of, Zack Snyder's Justice League is ever evolved, even though the key points and beats in the story will still probably be preserved, as he said in Jake's takes to Jake. And he said the storyboards for Zack Snyder's Justice League Part 2 and 3. They follow the same beats, but the story's changed a bit. It's evolved. Okay, so having said that, you will find the following with Warner Brothers. Okay, with Warner Brothers case, so you guys can understand Warner Brothers case. They have had massive global success with the movie Superman 1978, and since that time, oh yes, the person I'm thinking about is Richard Donner. Since that time, they've been trying to recapture that worldwide awe they gave for their superhero accuracy. Their approach has been wrong, but that is their goal. Their goal is the same thing like almost any fan who's really a fan of any movie, except for one thing. These executives, you must understand, do not see things as how a creative would see things. So for them, they want the most popular version of Superman out there, what we call generic Superman. They will want the most popular version of Batman out there, a generic Batman, and so on and so on. And how he behaves and everything, they want him like the generic, how the population sees him, just give me that, okay? So Warner Brothers has been trying to do that for the longest time with Superman, and it failed, right? The take on Superman failed over and over again. They gave but the reason this happened is because they fired the man who gave them the success, Richard Donner, who gave them the successful 1978 Superman. Okay, Richard Donner, the man who gave them the golden goose on the platter. They fired him because he decided he was going in a different direction, a much more serious direction with Superman and Superman 2. Even though a comedian in... Wow, did you hear that? I did. wow. A comedian in what's the guy's name? In a comedian in one of the greatest comedians ever. What's his name? Help me out here. Richard 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 Pryor. Richard Donner, Richard Pryor. So Richard Pryor was the comedian that they brought to the table. Okay? Richard Pryor. Now, even though he's inside of Superman 2, Richard Donner wanted the movie to be a much more serious take on Superman. And as a result of that, Superman 2, they fired Richard Donner. Richard Donner was done a good amount of work on Superman 2, but still, at the same time, they fired. Now, they wanted what Richard Donner had given the first movie because they thought this is the formula that is needed for success. So they fired Richard Donner instead of going with his visionary route, the tracking, the direction Richard Donner wanted to go in, because Richard Donner was trying to bring, again, something fresh and new to the table and expand out the dimension of Superman and make their IP more. And this is the thing. People love Richard Donner's 1978 Superman. But wait till you would see what Richard Donner would have done with that Superman in Superman 2, which would have been in 1980. Now, I'm not here to tell you that, you know, Superman 2 was a terrible failure, and so no, it turned out to be a success. It was more of a comic kind of like, you know, the pathos and the comedy kind of movie. But ultimately, in the end, everyone remembers Superman 1. They don't remember Superman 2 as much as Superman 1. And the reason that happened is because Richard Donner put his heart and soul into Superman 1, but he did not get to put his heart and soul into Superman 2. You know? Because the studio took it from him. Because the studio was interested in a formula, whereas the creator was trying to bring something fresh and new to the table. So, while Superman 2 actually made money at the box office, it didn't in no ways went beyond and made more money than Superman 1. And secondarily, the following two Superman films that happened, they were box office flops because Warner Bros. Felt they could duplicate what Richard Donner had done in Superman 1 with some other director. They said, what are we doing? Right? And so they got box office flops. And then, many years later, in 2006, so from the 80s, Superman, they didn't try to do no more movies with Superman after all those flops. And then, of course, Christopher Reeves, he got injured. But in 2006, they tried again to do a Superman movie with Bryan Singer. And they thought they had the perfect movie, you know, because they had this generic Superman. You know, they literally used Christopher Lee's model because Christopher Reeve's Superman ended up being the Superman. Okay, that's how much impact he had. He had impact on comics. Superman never had a curl and all that kind of stuff. You know, Superman ended up with a curl. Impacted comics. And Christopher Reeve's Superman impacted. This is how big Christopher Reeve's Superman was. That first movie, Superman 1978, was so big, it had such a huge impact that cartoons, movies, comic books adopted Christopher Reeve's Superman. That was the Superman off the movie. The whole world knew about Superman because Christopher Reeve made Superman big. That Christopher Reeve Superman was huge. It revolutionized the world. It brought to the world comic book movies in a big way. But that effect that Warner Brothers wanted never happened again. And the reason it didn't happen again is because they fired the visionary director. What business aspects, the business aspect of companies needs to understand. They need to understand that you have to allow your creatives, especially visionary creatives, to follow their path to completion. Do not try. That's not what you do. You don't make movies. You don't make movies. So no matter how close you are to the movie, no matter what you're seeing in the creative process, you don't do that. If you put forth money and you're a producer or executive producer, whatever you are, that's different to actually making a very successful movie. You can make a movie, anybody can make a movie. But when you meet a director, and these directors do not come every day. They're not every day. You don't just get these kinds. Superman is one of the hardest characters. It's one of the hardest characters for any director to direct, and it's proven. Okay, you had Richard Donner. Then we had some other directors who we don't even know their names that did Superman 2, 3, and 4. And they all failed. And then Bryan Singer came on the scene, the man who did X-Men, revolutionary director. And he failed. Okay? So it's not anybody can just direct Superman and get a successful movie out of it. Okay? So Warner Brothers, they tried to get that quintessential Superman, and they thought it was Christopher Reeve Superman, because that's the Superman that you see a lot. You see it in the animated series. You see that Superman, with Super Friends and all that kind of stuff that was going on back then. But it just didn't click on the big screen. And Bryan Singer tried his best to capture that Superman and the essence of, and it was a continuation of Christopher Reeve Superman, by the way, and didn't work. It's 33 years later from the last successful Superman movie in 1980, Superman 2, that Zack Snyder was brought on board by Christopher Nolan and David Goyer to direct a Superman movie. And 33 years later, Zack Snyder succeeded at bringing Superman to the table, making him relevant. And to this day, many people will tell you Man of Steel is a classic. It is one of the best comic book movies of all time. Okay? They'll tell you all of that. And unfortunately, you got a lot of hate when it came out by critics, but the general population enjoyed it for the most part, even though there was some controversy behind it. A visionary director is able to give you a fresh look and a fresh take on a character that the audience will actually appreciate and like, because he's looked at the character inside out and shaped an idea. And of course, it's a collaborative process. It's David Goyer's baby. Christopher Nolan, was like, okay, cool. Zack Snyder was the director that kind of brought it to life. And to get cast and actors. But the point I'm making is, just like what happened with Richard Donner, just like what happened with what's the guy's name? With all these names are slipping me. Tim Burton. Okay, it happened with Zack Snyder. The studio wants the formula. They want something that gives them the win, everything. They want the critical ratings. They want everything. They want this thing to blow the whole world apart, right? So Zack gives them this, but doesn't get the critical kind of esteem that they expect. And Zack Snyder all of a sudden They don't want Zack Snyder. Of course, Jeff Johns in the background just wasn't helping the situation because he was excluded from the creative process. And Jeff Johns, of course, is an advocate with the studio for, the Christopher Reeve Superman. Okay? So they say, well, you know what? We need to have Batman v Superman. Zack Snyder does Batman v Superman. Christopher Nolan's not there to protect him, so the runtime is short. And they are ready to act Zack after Batman v Superman. Of course, the projections for it was way too high. I think 1.5 billion they expected to make from it, and it made about half of that. The thing is, they completely didn't want anything to do with Zack Snyder from there, because again, these people are not creatives. They're not looking at fresh takes of things. They're looking at the dollar sign, and for them, it's a very simplistic thinking. Oh, Superman, Batman, okay, cool. Put them together. We should make a lot of money, right? And they're not thinking of Superman as how Zach's thinking of Superman. No, they're thinking of Superman still as a Christopher Reeve Superman, or one of those generic Supermans, right? They're thinking of Batman as one of those generic Batmans. So when Zack Snyder comes with a Batman that's troubled and he's old and all these other complications, and then he's killing people and stuff, or people are dying, they're like, okay, but we didn't need all of this. I thought we were just going to have a smash up, some disagreements and a smash up, and then they team up together to fight the big bad, right? So they wanted something simpler, right? As it probably some public sold anyway in the market. But the point is that visionary directors, they're always looking for a fresh take on things. Okay? James Cameron gave you a fresh take on Avatar, right? Or original concept. James Gunn gave you a fresh take on heroes and stuff. So it's a fresh take on things. You don't want to do something that's already been done. That's a creative. But that's not how the business thinks. They're thinking, no, we duplicate success. We need a formula, we need to duplicate this, so this is the problem. And so they keep on making the same mistakes over and over. They keep on pushing away the people who give them the success that they get. And they tend to embrace people who are kind of like yes men, and the studio has more say. And the people who should not be involved in the creative process find themselves involved in the creative process. The studio gets involved. And so your story's all muddled, and the depth of and the characters and everything just goes to hell. So when we look at, I'm just showing you something. Justice League 2017. It was just a ball of crap. You think of what's the name? The Marvel film, which I actually watched. Fantastic Four. You think of that. The studio got involved, right? So the studio keeps on getting involved. Why do they keep on getting involved? Because they want the generic understanding of the characters. They don't want fresh takes, really. These guys not thinking like that. They'll say, oh, that movie's fine. That's a good movie. And if you look, and then your story's all going to hell because, the story's built on blocks. They want you to cut and snip here and all kinds of crazy things, right? Because they're all thinking about money, and they don't think that deeply into story. All right, so let me get to how this can be addressed, because I kind of went over some of the things that I said in the last video, and I went into some depth. So let's address, how do we deal with a situation like that? How do we, as fans, deal with a situation like that? All right, first things first. First things first is, we as fans are consumers. And if you're excited to see a movie, you go see it. If you're not excited to see a movie, don't go see it. Don't go see something you're not excited to see. Don't go see something you don't want to see. All right, that's the first thing. You must know as a fan what it is you like to watch, and only go through with that. Don't worry about what anybody tells you. They might say, this is the best movie in the world, and you say, nope, I don't believe that. Then don't. Okay? Somebody's spamming my chat. So let's see if we can get this. So in short, uh, you know, it's all about having the understanding of what you as a consumer, what are your powers? First, we're going to start with that. There's changes that need to be made in several different areas, but we'll start with that. The second thing I want to say is that you as fans have to be vocal about what you want. You have to. The studio's not going to just, and even if the studio has heard you and so on, you have to be vocal. You have to be able, drastic measures call for drastic things, to appear on every single platform and forum, especially with social media. Thankfully, that's an interactive thing. That kind of makes it even more possible. Every forum, you can't just stay in one forum or one platform. You have to go everywhere and make your voice known, loud, what it is you want, so that if they don't supply that, don't be surprised that we're not watching it, because that's not what we want. And in this day and age, fans have a lot of say in what they want. Okay. And finally, this is the most important part for the solutions to such a problem. You have to have creatives in the movie making business who are legendary creatives, meaning filmmakers, legendary filmmakers or directors, need to be a part of the executive. Now I know there's to some degree executives because like Snyder and Gunn and all these guys, they executively produce movies. But we need successful visionary creatives who are part of the executive and are able to influence the executive. Sometimes we have creatives who have never had a successful movie done under them, who are influencing the executives. Can't have that. You have to have people who have been very successful at movie making, particularly directing, cinematography, those aspects. We need those kinds of people because those people will be able to extend to the executive or push the executive. So, for example, when Zack Snyder was with Christopher Nolan had a lot of push and pull, and he was able to hold off the dogs from the creative process that Zack Snyder was doing. So they never get to touch his Man of Steel movie, which is why Man of Steel is probably one of the better Zack Snyder films out of all of the Zack Snyder films that Zack Snyder had to do. When he did Watchmen, they interfered with it. A Sucker Punch, they interfered with. So the only movie that they didn't interfere with, out of all his movies he did, was Man of Steel and 300, right? And Dawn of the Dead, which I don't think was done by Warner Bros., but probably was. Okay, Dawn of the Dead, Man of Steel, and 300. That's it. Okay, and again, Christopher Nolan having that pull is able, because you had to have an executive that respects the creative process. If you don't have an executive in there or a set of executives who can say, hey, hold up your dogs. No. Let them go to their completion with what they're doing and protect the creatives. You're going to have a situation where these executives are going to come in and try to change up things because they have a very narrow perception of what the IP should be. Okay? Which is a problem. You don't get that problem when you're dealing with things like normal movies, right? The creatives are able to do whatever they want with those normal movies. But once you start talking about comic book movies and the perception of comic book characters, all of a sudden, these executives want to influence that. And you see them not pumping money into Joker, for example, when David Todd had to do his thing, and so on. So these executives, they constantly want to have a say in something they're not qualified to have a say in, And I really don't appreciate that, but that's the way how that goes. So the way for the industry to start to change because there's a number of different things I noticed. One is how the executive arm treats, for example, people of color. It also how it treats, again, how it may treat women in the industry. These are all things that will change if you have creatives, legendary creatives, who are open to these things and understand what is going on. Because with all of this, social justice warrior, SJW stuff that they're trying to push, it's still very much there's a lot of nepotism in there. There's a lot of chauvinism still in the industry. And it's really so hypocritical of them to try to push, race and all these things as, good things where we have mixed people and people of different, but they're still with the same old regime mentality. Okay, and it's still happening today. Up to the day on Twitter, I saw a woman of color speaking about this issue in the industry and how difficult the workplace is still for people of color. And this is something that Ray Fisher has been bringing up. So we as fans being more in tune to these things, we need to raise them as issues as well. We need to take on and support these different people in the industry. And thankfully, Ray Fisher has a fan base behind him now. We've seen the quality of work he actually does. And so we as fans can also rally behind the actors to get them where they need to be. Now, some actors have gotten in WB right now. Ben Affleck and Henry Cavill are back, and that's good for them. Of course, Zack Snyder is not back. Of course, Ray Fisher has no report of Ray Fisher being back. Ray Porter, does he have work? We don't know. Wayne T. Carr, we don't know if he has work. There's a number of different actors. We're hearing Amy Adams might be replaced by somebody else. And all these kind of crazy things are going on. We have to, as consumers, we have to step it up and show what we are willing to purchase. We have to become a little bit more cognizant of these things. And it all starts with us, because they can't make any money if we're not buying their product, whether it's their toys, or whether it's their movies or whatever. They're not buying what they sell us. Now that affects the executives' pockets. They need to listen, right? So the way how Warner Brothers has been conducting itself, it's hearing us and what we have to say, but we're not forceful enough. We're not strong enough. They're not feeling us. They're hearing us. They're not feeling us. They need to feel us. And the only way they're going to feel us is if we are repetitive with our message. Just like how we were decided that we took the ante up so much. It didn't matter what Warner Brothers posted, what movie they published. We were there and we were just blasting them with what we wanted. And they called that assaulting them, because we made them have to move their hand. We were so intense on social media, they couldn't even post anything without us saying release the Snyder. We would just bombard them with stuff. And we need to do the same thing again here. And if their movies are not up to par with what we like to see, we're just not going to go and watch it. We want them to have a clear understanding that, no, we as a consumer are not going to take that garbage. We are, as a consumer, are going to get proper movies. And we want, because as fans, I don't know about other companies, but we as fans, we don't just say, we're not just yes men taking any old thing. If you're going to put out a movie, we're not going to go see it just because you put out a movie. We don't have blind allegiance. You have to put out something that is worth our while to go see in the theater, because we have money and it's hard-earned money. We're not just going to go spend our money any old how. So I wouldn't tell fans to boycott anything, because I'm not into that. But I'm going to say this to them. If you're interested in a movie, go see it, of course. But if you're not interested in something and people are trying to force you to go see something you're not interested in, too bad for them. And on top of that, hit them with the hashtags. Okay? This is what we as fans can do. And we can do it all day. We can do it for the rest of our lives. We have all that time, right? We come up with work, we come up with what we're doing, we hit the hashtags. Besides the hashtags, of course, fans having constructive things for suicide prevention, Feeding America, and getting yourselves involved in many different activities, and then using the hashtag on top of that shows us in a positive light, just like what we did before. Now I'll show you something. Let me show you how history is repeating itself, right? When a new regime came to Warner Brothers in 2000, I believe, 16, and Justice League was supposed to come out, Jeff Johns and John Berg were the two co-CEOs of, at the time, DC Films. Right? Remember that? And then Justice League came. In this change of regime, we again have two cool chairpersons or cool CEOs of now called DC Studios. History is repeating itself. Okay? And it's almost like Jeff Johns and John Berg all over. Pete Safran and James Gunn. It's like history is repeating itself again. They're doing the same rubbish that they were doing before. And the funny thing about this is this. They said Jeff Johns would save the DCEU, and we saw the crap that happened. Now they're saying that James Gunn will save the DCEU, and we know it's going to be crap after that, right? We don't even have to, I don't care what anybody says, it's going to be crap. And the point behind it is this. Why do they keep on doing that over and over again? Because once again, the executive arm of Warner Brothers knows nothing about movies, knows nothing about the creative process, knows nothing about visionary direction. Now, James Gunn has an idea of visionary direction, but his last movie flopped at the box office, and really, some people talk about they love the Peacemaker series. I don't. It's shit, and I don't enjoy it. Okay? So, and I'm sure there's a lot of people who agree with me. There's a minority that likes that. The point is, anyway, that these dumb decisions that you see happening over and over again have happened before. And the only way the nonsense and the stupidity will end, and I know Disney's, you can see Disney's trying to get DC. Kevin Feige came last year with Jeff Gunn to see what he was doing there. And there's a lot of Marvel people now up in DC. Okay? A lot of Marvel people. A lot of people from Disney are now doing projects with DC. And so we can see that it's like Disney. It's almost like they're trying to spruce it up for Disney to take it over. So it'll be a nice, easy transition. The property. But I would say this. David Zaslav and company are making the same mistakes that the Hamada and Emmerich organization did, because they're going and towing the line of that because of their policy. So they feel that Zack Snyder wasn't helping their policy. And he's not, even though he's a visionary director, once again, they're making the same mistake they did that was made with Richard Donner. They're not allowing Zack Snyder to finish his set of movies. And you saw how successful the Snyder Cut was, right? But they're not allowing him to go to his completion and not allowing him to go in the direction. And the thing about this is, if they would allow the guy to go wherever he wants to go, and they could still have their universe and their crap fest if they want, they can go in that direction with the generic Supermans and the generic stuff, because everybody wants the generic stuff. Nobody wants the generic stuff, especially DC fans. We want fresh takes on things. But anyway, they could keep that generic stuff going and still have the Snyderverse. They will not report on the Snyderverse. They're not even trying to include it in there because there's a policy that their company has. And, they want to stick with that. They want to stick with this generic thing, which is going to fail. It's going to fail because it never succeeded. Bryan Singer tried it, it failed. And that's Bryan Singer was, let's see how many years? 26 years after Bryan Singer failed. The only take on Superman that has had success at the box office has been Snyder's take on Superman. This is what it is. Okay? Now, there was a decree by Toby Emmerich and Walter Hamada that Zack Snyder Justice League is a cul-de-sac. They refuse to put it in theaters. So we as fans have something we can do and keep to it. It doesn't matter what is happening in Warner Brothers, because once again, that doesn't change our tune. Our tune should be focused, fine-tuned, and we should stick with what we're doing and just be consistent. It doesn't matter what Warner Brothers says, because I knew from Black Adam which direction they were going. They're continuing the Hamadaverse. This is the Hamadaverse 2.0. So it's not surprising that James Gunn's the head of it. This is the direction they're going. They're going the same direction they were going all along. It's just that now they're bringing in some of the actors and people that were sidelined, and they're putting them in this universe. That's basically what they're doing. They're not going to restore the Snyderverse unless we make that possible. Because these are executives. They don't know nothing about the creative process. They don't know what it's like to be a successful creative. They don't. So they're going to continue bullheadedly to try to ram down people's throats a generic form of these heroes. They're going to try to splice up their movies with action, have very little story, okay? They're going to try to keep it simple so it's light on the head, and that's what they're going to push forward. That's the direction they're going in. Something Jeff Johns, they love Jeff Johns because Jeff Johns speaks their language. Okay? They love Jeff Johns. And Jeff Johns has done a great job of destroying the DCEU and setting the tone for Marvel to come in, you know, Disney to come in, sweep away the DC property. That's what's going on. So if you guys don't understand that, I mean, I don't want to say. But you, as a fan, can stop that from happening. You may not be able to stop Disney from buying the DC franchise. Okay? But what you will be able to do, or merging with WBD, whatever it's called after, WB Disney, whatever, I don't care. But what you can do is definitely stand up for what you want to see. And simply do not buy things, whether it's merchandise, toys, whatever it is, do not buy things you don't want to see. One of two things will happen. Because this is a war between, believe it or not, the studio and the fans. It's a war. It's a straight up war. One of two things will happen. Either, because they're trying to divide us. They're trying to divide us as fans. And we have to be resolute. We have to see clearly what is happening. And we have to stand up. Some of the fans fell for the bait, and they went with Black Adam. I would have been one if it wasn't for the Black Suit issue. But Ray Fisher told us he wasn't supporting any of Hamada's films. Honestly, we don't have a reason to go into the cinemas and see any of those films. I don't care if it's the Flash film. I don't care if it's the Aquaman film. I don't care what film it is. There's no reason for us who want to see the Snyderverse restored going to see those films, because those films are not part of the Snyderverse. They're not. And if that's what motivates us to go into cinema as a Snyderverse film, why should we go into the cinema? Unless it's a really good movie. You know, I went into the cinema and saw Warner Brothers' Joker. You know, and some of us just don't watch any old movie. We don't just go into the cinema to watch any old thing. You know, and that's the thing which a lot of people don't understand. There's a lot of people like myself. We don't waste our time. We want to go into the cinema and do things, see movies that we think are worth a while. And if DC doesn't offer us that, what are we to do? We're not going to go into the cinema and watch something we don't want to see. Okay? And the way how the direction DC is going in, clearly I don't want to see those movies. I can't stand cringe. I can't stand jokes in a movie where it's a movie, yes, but it's just stupid. There are movies where I will watch them because they're comedies and therefore, you know, jokes are involved. I'll say this though, and I say this with a certain degree of sadness. David Sandberg, for all you can say about Shazam, has tried his best to, with given information he has, link up with Zack Snyder stuff. He has not been, you know, shy in showing that. So if there's one guy who I truly feel sorry that I did not support your movie, because I would have just gone to support your movie because I'm telling you right now, Shazam is still a tough. It's still is a tough ask for me to go into the cinema and watch, given that you know those tropes, man, those tropes, and the acting is just not my thing. It's just not my thing. Shazam is not my thing. I'm not laughing. You know, should be moments in the Shazam where I'm laughing. The moments just don't come. They never come. I watched certain clips of Shazam and it was not funny to me. It was just a guy trying to over dramatize what a kid would be, and it takes me out of the book. But anyway, you know, regardless, David Sandberg tried his best to link up Shazam with what Zack was doing. He is probably the only one inside of this new regime who actually is desperately trying to link up with Zack Snyder. Just he wants to say his movie is canon to Zack Snyder. Just he definitely wants to say that, you know. And you can feel it. You can feel he wants to link up with Zack Snyder. He wants Zack Snyder just to be canon. That's the only guy. Everybody else seems to want to do. They want to distance themselves from Zack's stuff. You know, Patty Jenkins had nothing to do with Zack's stuff whatsoever. In fact, Patty thought that the Snyder Cut was never going to happen. She said that. Gal just watched the same thing, smiled. Gal obviously wanted it to happen. You know, you look at James Gunn. James Gunn, oh my God, I don't know what to say about this guy when it comes to directing. You wonder, you're baffled by the fact that Warner Bros. Would pick this guy out of everybody to head DC. I just don't understand it. Like I still, honestly, I can't understand it myself. I'm like watching this in a quandary. Why would you take a guy who, okay, he was a successful Marvel director. He's not been successful at DC. I don't care what anybody says. He's not been successful at DC. And you put him as director of what? Why? So, you know, once again, baffling and scratching your head. But then you're thinking to yourself, no, actually, they're trying to get the Marvel formula because they're following formulas, right? This is the way our Warner Brothers thinks. These executives, they've never made a fucking movie in their life. So, of course, they're thinking of things very simplistically. They're not thinking of the creative process and how to create something that no one has seen before. They're just thinking money and they don't care. So, obviously, for them, it's just the bottom line. And that's the disconnect. So, like I said, you have more creatives, successful creatives. Now, you would say, well, James Gunn's a creative. He's a creative, but he's not been a successful creative of late, especially with the DC property. Especially with the DC property. The disrespect this motherfucker did, sorry about the cursing, the disrespect this guy did to the Justice League cannot be undone. That's the guy you want to have heading your DC line? Come on, man. As a creative, that's just ridiculous. There's no respect for the characters, no respect for the IPs. And you talk, and then Zaslav has the audacity to say, we want to restore the brand's status. You're not restoring any brand status by doing that, man. Come on. Like my boy Leroy Kong said, Zaslav is a clown. I hate to say it, but the move that he made is a clown move. It's a clown move. Now, if you're doing a parody of Justice League, absolutely, go ham. But if you're not doing a fucking parody and you're using the actual Justice League, have some goddamn respect for them. So the fans are going nuts, of course. They're going nuts about it. Know who says preach. You know, the fans are going nuts. They're livid about the move by Warner Brothers. Of course, you're pissed off all the fans, all of them. There are a very small minority that likes James Gunn and follows him, whatever, that are complimenting this. And they say he's a big hit on HBO Max. But how many people actually subscribe to HBO Max? Not enough people to make a movie successful. What are you thinking, Warner Brothers? But of course, these people are not thinking. This is why there's a disconnect between the fans and them. So let me go back to scripture. I'm going to hit y'all with the scripture. Brother, hey, Noah who 100 said, preach. Yes, brother. This is the same problem we actually having with Marvel now. Because the fans was livid about what happened with Star Wars. The fans was telling them, what are you doing? And they still continue down the line. And so to this day, the fans believe that Star Wars trilogy was the worst ever trilogy ever. Because you're trying to shove something down the fans' throat that they didn't ask you for, and two, they do not appreciate, and they told you so. I want to just read this, because this is the problem. When there is a moral rut within a nation, its government topples easily. You think the WBD is going to last? I don't think so. The fans will always be there. But WBD, their days are numbered. And they'll have to sell. And they know this, which is why they realize Black Adam's not doing what it needs to do. So they're really setting up to sell to Disney. This is what I think. They're going to sell out the ship to Disney because they can't hold on to it. And that'll be that. They're going to topple. And if Disney doesn't watch it, the DCIP will be a burden on them that they never imagined. Because the DC fans are not Marvel fans. And of course, people will say, well, Marvel fans will embrace DC from that point on, and that will sustain. Nope, that will not happen. And I'll show you why. Okay? Because, again, they're not thinking. They're not thinking. Why would let me see if I can make this clear to people so they will understand. Why would I go watch a Marvel movie and then another Marvel movie with the DC title in it? Why would I do that? I'm a huge Marvel fan. I'm going to see different characters, but it's a repeat of the same thing that these characters just did. Because they're going to do the same thing. They got the same tropes and everything. They're going to have a problem. Now this is what Disney hopes will happen if they buy it. They would get the expertise and the brilliance of the DC creators, and they'll do DC movies together, and that brain power and everything will be shared. Just like how they stole off of DC people. Okay? That is what they're hoping. And that will royally backfire. Because guess what? Guess what? The brain power and the people, the visionary directors who do these movies, you have to respect the creative process. And the direction they're going right now is formulaic. DC. It's formulaic. It's committee. It's boardroom. I want you to understand what I'm saying. They'll never be able to harness the power of a visionary director because they're going to fall out with that visionary director when he goes in the direction that they think is not the right one. Unless they actually have visionary directors like Christopher Nolan in there to protect the creative in the direction he's going. So that the process can go to its completion. This, in essence, is the problem. And the only way the solution can happen is if there are powerful creatives who are in executive positions in these companies to control and protect the interests of the creators that are actually making the movies. And that goes for the actors in terms of how they are treated, whether they're minorities or women, whether they are foreigners or citizens. Okay? These are very important things, whether they're children or adults. All of these factors are very important. People talk about SJW all the time, and you want to preach SJW, but you don't practice it. That is why you're fake as hell, and that's why your fakeness is exposed. Doing like you on this big SJW thing, oh yeah, minorities, Latino, blah, blah. But in the background, you treat them like trash. You treat them like trash. Where is Ray Fisher? Why isn't Ray Fisher already with a job with Warner Brothers? Why? Why is this man not hired? We got 2 white men that were hired. Where's the black man? But you want to preach SJW nonsense? Get out of here with that nonsense. So that is what I'm speaking of. Bottom line is money. These guys just think about money. And Black Adam's not going to get them the money they're looking for. And they know it. So they're trying to pivot. I will say this, so people will start to respect the position. Yes, there are times when creatives do really stupid, crazy things. Okay? There are times when creatives do stupid, crazy things. Okay? But most of the times, the creators and what they do, if they would just get the support from the people at the top saying, you are the people who know what you're doing. We're going to give you the resources. You go ahead and do what you do. It will. Patty Jenkins, I'm going to say this again. I am a Patty Jenkins fan. So y'all going to have to, a lot of y'all ain't going to agree with me on this, but I don't care. Patty Jenkins is an excellent director. There's things Patty Jenkins don't do. That's not her thing. You have to understand that. But with respect to Patty Jenkins, she's an excellent director. James Gunn is a visionary director. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to tell you all the lies. He's a visionary director. Guardians of the Galaxy is a hell of a thing. What that man did with Guardians of the Galaxy, hell of a thing. However, James Gunn has not been successful of late with the DC properties. Okay, he's not. Now, y'all can say, well, you got success with Suicide Squad and then Peacemaker came over. No, he wasn't. Okay, that thing bombed heavily at the box office. It bombed. Whereas other movies were successful, that bombed. And I can tell you why. It's just a different fan base with DC. DC has a different fan base. If you don't understand and respect the fan base of DC, if you don't respect the fan base, you don't do your metrics properly with that, you're going to be in problems. So if you don't believe in the fans and the fans are important, you're going to suffer for it. Okay, cool. Let me tell you a bit about Wonder Woman 84 and why Wonder Woman 84 backfired. In my opinion, as a creative myself, Wonder Woman 84 backfired for the mere reason that Patty did not have the expertise around her to be able to execute specific subtle things she wanted to do. And so the action scenes just, the action scenes did not come out right. They just did not come out right. What she was seeing in her head didn't come out right. And she was like, all right, well, I give it a shot. I'm ambitious. She gave it a shot. And as a woman in the industry, you know how these people are, man. In this industry, it's rough on women. Okay, it's just what it is. And so, you know, she lost the Star Wars project just recently, right? That she was doing. But you know, Patty, I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna live and die on this. She's a phenomenal director. Okay, what she did with the No Man's Land scene is not going to be duplicated anytime. That's a once in a lifetime kind of thing. That was a hell of a scene. Okay, in Wonder Woman, first movie, and it says so much. It speaks volumes. Okay, so I mean, I can't say much more than that's an incredible director. It's just she didn't have the right people around her to execute what she had in her head. What she had in her head, she tried to get it to happen, but it's just there are so many subtle things with cinematography that you have to have involved to make it. Because okay, okay, for those of you who watch Zack Snyder's Justice League, there is a moment in Zack Snyder's Justice League where Hippolyta is Steppenwolf just leaps out of the sea and he's going way up into the sky, going after the mother boxes, and she jumps on the horse and she's riding. She's riding on the horse, going towards Steppenwolf, going towards the action to try and save the mother box and also to protect it, right? And you see her galloping. The background is moving at a totally different speed to what she's moving at, right? If you guys watch it. But the message is she's so desperate to get there that time has suspended. But they want to still give you that feeling that it's moving at a high speed, so the background is moving. So the visual effect of that was incredible. Patty tried to duplicate that scene, what I'm talking to you about, in Wonder Woman when she was running towards the tanks and trying to save, deal with the situation, right? And it just came up all clunky and wrong. And she could have done it. It could have been done mechanically and looked beautiful. But she didn't have the right people around it. They got the mechanics right, but they didn't get the feeling she was trying to convey, the message she was trying to convey right. You see what I'm saying? That's why I said they kind of botched up the action and just looked terrible. It was a certain everybody talks about the notorious mall scene, right? I don't know if she was trying to do a spoof or a parody. It was a hell of a thing to watch. I still laugh about it to this day. It still makes me laugh. Oh God. It was so awful. It was so awful. It was humorous. It was just, it was tremendously terrible. What the hell? Somebody's trying to spam my account. Hold on a second. I blocked this person. Yes. There are these people with this online dating nonsense and people trying to put porn on the internet that just really annoys me. And they're trying to come through here. Yeah, so as I was saying, she's a visionary director. It's just the execution of what she was trying to do. Unfortunately for her, it backfired. All right. I am never going to watch Wonder Woman. I'm never going to watch Wonder Woman 84 ever again. I'm sorry. That thing is just too much. The beginning was great, though. The opening scene was, oh my God, I got the emotional. I wanted to cry as little Diana was running across the field and stuff. It was incredible. And some of it was a little bit clunky, but I didn't care. But oh my God, that mall scene, I don't know what was going on there. Oh my God. Oh my God, that was just, it was terrible. And that, it didn't get any better. But once there was no action, the movie was actually going along pretty nicely. When it was action, it was just terrible. I think the best action I saw was Cheetah versus Diana. I thought that was, it was kind of okay. But no, so whoever was doing the action for Patty really dropped the ball on that. I mean, the action was terrible. And it wasn't properly done. You could still feel the story was kind of rushed. They were still trying to work on the story. I could tell they were working on the story still. So, it's what it is. But You know, Patty's a hell of a director. Okay, it's just again, she needed to connect in some way to what Zack was doing, and she always talked about Zack Snyder's Justice League being the Justice League that should be. They don't consider Justice League 2017 as Justice League. It is what it is. So what I'm trying to say to you guys is, and I think I'm pretty much finished here, is the studios and the execs in the studios need to have people in the studios who respect the creative process, and they will tell you they respect it, but they don't. Okay, and I do know money talks, but still, at the same time, you have to let your creatives fully flush out whatever it is they're working towards. Joker is a perfect example of that. Todd Phillips and Joaquin Phoenix were just pushing towards what is this Joker going to be? What is it? The creative process. They kept on going at it, and almost every scenario that had to be presented was something they had to sort of flow into. And you have to understand that is the key to the creative process. And so a creative process is ever evolving. It's not something where you have a formula. And unfortunately, because everything in this day and age has become formulaic, people always have these paths to success and all these things. No one really goes through the true experience of whether it's creatively or experientially growing and evolving and pushing the boundaries on things. And that's key. That's key. And so I really truly have the appreciation of those directors, James Cameron, Zack Snyder, Christopher Nolan. I love how he pushes the boundaries on things. I'm not the greatest fan of his movies, but he always gives you something fresh, new, different, a perspective that's different. And that's what we need today. We need movies that will help us to push the boundaries on our own selves. You go into cinema and you leave different. You don't go into the cinema one way and leave the same way you came, but you just had a lot of jokes and laughs and that was it. And the take-home message is some shallow take-home. I don't like that stuff. I don't appreciate it. And there are many people, particularly adult people like myself, who don't appreciate that, especially with comic book movies. You get it in other genres where you go into a genre and you go, whether it's a horror movie, whatever, and there's something else they're telling. There's something much more meaningful for you to think of and reflect on. Why is it with comic book movies it needs to be shallow? And they don't take themselves seriously, and let's have some jokes. Why? Okay, and these executives feel that's the way to go. That will create comic book fatigue. Okay, you don't need that. So what I'm trying to say to people is that I hate a whole bunch of movies that look the same, and they do the same thing, and the characters are going through the same journeys. Everyone should go through a different journey. Yes, there's similarities in a hero's journey, but everybody should have their own pathway and their own journey. And this is the thing I don't understand. So the only way this is going to happen is it starts with the consumer. It starts with you. It starts with me. And you, in this day and age, thankfully, you have a voice. Social media is an interactive thing. Okay. The Rock was saying, he's listening to the fans, whatever that means. And he's saying, sometimes we can deliver, sometimes we can't deliver, but we listen to you. Well, what The Rock should do is answer the fans. Meaning, if you couldn't have Black Suit Superman in there, explain yourself. But we would want to have Black Suit Superman in there. We really would. But we can't. And I'll explain to you why. Say that. Talk to us. Don't just listen to us, talk to us. In other words, a nice dialogue and rapport. Zack Snyder has a rapport with the fans. All of a sudden, these other guys, they have rapport with the fans, or they want to have rapport with the fans following Zack Snyder. That's cool. And that's good. Because what it does is when you have rapport with your fans, they're going to want to identify with you more. And there will be loyalty. And then you can carry him wherever you go. And I know The Rock has a certain degree of fans with him wherever he goes. Comic book, but the comic book genre is a very, very difficult one because, you know, and let me just say this: The Rock, to me, I never had an issue with him as Black Adam. He didn't have to have the pointy ears. He didn't have to have the hair. I think he looks tremendous as Black Adam. Okay, so I've never had an issue with him playing the role of Black Adam. Probably he has plays the better part of the movie. My problem is putting this Black Adam or putting Gal's a perfect Wonder Woman, but you put her in Wonder Woman 84. Now you're pulling your hairs out. It's not enough to have the perfect character like Henry Cavill or Ben Affleck, but you put them in as something with a terrible story or just something that just like, oh no, you know what I mean? So it's not enough. The reason why we have restored the Snyderverse, the reason why we want Zack Snyder back, is not. He doesn't have to run DC. He can do his. He just has. Zack Snyder has 2 more movies to do. 2 more movies and he's done. You don't have to see him. We don't have to see him anymore. You don't have to see him anymore. We don't have to situation. It's 2 more movies. Justice League 2 and Justice League 3. Let the man finish his stuff. Why is this a problem? He's done after that. You don't have to see him anymore. Okay, maybe people, fans will cry, more, whatever. But at the end of the day, all you needed to do was give the man his 2 movies. He wasn't even worried about. He said, okay, Warner Bros. Said I'm not part of the universe, whatever, no problem. This is not canon. This is elsewhere. Okay, cool. Just let me do my movies. Let him do his movies. What are you worried about? You got your own universe. Do your thing. But let the man finish his movies. But we see why. We see why. But I'm not going to say too much more about that. You as fans, it's really irrelevant because you as fans is what you want. That's the most important in this social era, social media era. Okay, it's what you want. You have to be clear and you have to stay true to what you want. It doesn't matter what Warner Brothers does. It doesn't matter who's the head of Warner Brothers. It doesn't matter. They're going to behave the same way they behaved for the last, what is it now? It's 2022. 1978. 2022. 44 years they've been behaving the same way. 44 years there's been a disconnect between the executives and what people want. Since that successful Superman movie. They're not going to change unless changes happen internally. And people who are actually creatives find themselves in positions to protect creatives. It's not going to happen otherwise. Leaving Christopher Nolan. Look what they did to Christopher Nolan. You have to leave them. Look what they did to him. Another visionary director. Okay? It's a clash because you have people who are managing things who do not understand the creative process. It's not a formulaic one. It's something where it takes a time. It evolves. It doesn't even have an end. And if you can't understand that, and that directors are going to try to give fresh takes on things, and you try to manufacture a fresh take on things, you're going to get goopty guy, you're going to get nonsense. The fans are going to watch you like, what the hell are you doing? Right? That's just the way how it goes. And I'm saying again, visionary directors don't come a dime a dozen, y'all. They don't come every single day. You don't just see a visionary director. Oh, there's a visionary director. Oh, there you go. Let's put it on this. And just because a guy is a visionary director doesn't mean he's a visionary director for a particular movie or a particular character. No Hoon 100 says, thanks for helping me get through these last few hours of work and addressing this topic because I'm becoming numb to DC News. Yeah, I hear you. You're disinterested. I understand you signing off on it. But I want to tell you, be involved in the process. Don't become discouraged. Become motivated. Understand that you have a say and a play in the process. And especially the fans. If we say, this is crap, I'm not watching it. Okay? You be as blunt as you want to be. It helps because these people realize, oh, we're putting out shit that nobody's watching. Nobody wants to see it. Nobody's excited to see it. They're going to have to stop. Either they're going to sell or they're going to have to stop because they're not making any money, right? So that's what we as consumers can do. And it's not a boycott. Don't try to force me to eat something I don't want to eat, right? That's not boycotting. If you want to dump stuff on fans and you think this formula works, let's dump this stuff on them. You think so? Okay, fine. Nobody's going to watch your stuff. There'll be a few that will watch your stuff, but then nobody's going to watch it. Right? So, and fans are getting smarter and more savvy to this. Right? Let me just put up what Nuhan said on here. So Nuhan said, thanks for helping me get through these last few hours of work and addressing the topic because I'm becoming numb to DCH. I understand you, brother. I understand some of it is it's strange, but you understand now why it's strange. Okay? They're trying to get something, they have the best intentions. Strange as this may sound. The executives have the best intentions. It's just that they try to get involved in things they shouldn't get involved. They try to get involved in the creative process. And that's something you should step away from. Give people, don't micromanage people. Give people the freedom to go where they want to go. Because the creative process is its own animal. It's its own being. It's its own organism. And it carries people places they never thought they would go. But you can't stifle that. If you try to make a formula to it, because you're trying to capture what a creative has done somewhere in the past or wherever and duplicate that, you're going to find yourself in problems. Now, with Marvel, they seem to have been able to do that, right? But that's because they took time to invest in each IP, and they have, Marvel has like 20-something movies, right? So they invested in the IP, had people follow along with the IP over time, over a span of 20 years or something like that. So then they were able to, and they had the promise of the big matchup. So even though the IPs were kind of shallow, they didn't really have that much depth or whatever, they were able to still capture people's imagination up to the point of, oh, this is our destination. We're going to eat that shit. No, I'm going to eat all that shit until I get to this destination. Don't disappoint me, though. Right? So they were eating all this shit. They was eating stuff that they probably wouldn't eat, but they had a destination. Okay? DC doesn't have that opportunity. They already have a certain foundation. They need to stick with that foundation, which is what this regime is trying to do. They're really trying to do it. But honestly, then you gotta listen to us. They're not listening really. They think they're listening, but they're not listening. And they're trying to push a certain agenda, and now they're going to plan B. They're like, oh shit, this is not going to work out. I need to sell this to Disney. It's kind of that situation that's happening right now. So anyway, I would say this. I would say this to everybody. You determine a lot of what's going to happen next. You have a lot of power. I've said this many times. We've seen the Snyder Cut come to pass because of you guys. It's you guys. Zack Snyder couldn't do that by himself. Definitely couldn't. It was you guys relentlessly pounding away at the door. And you have to keep on doing what you're doing. Keep doing what you're doing. Don't worry about what's happening around you. Just keep doing what you do. Stay focused and keep doing what you're doing. Because that will produce results. There are two things you need to understand. This is the social media era. And two, you're a fan. You're going to be a fan for as long as you want to be. Okay? The executives there, the clock's always ticking on them. Think about that. You actually have the position that's actually the more powerful position if you think about it. The executives, they're serving you. They're trying to produce entertainment to please you. Always remember that. You have the upper hand. So you don't have to buy their product. You don't have to buy their toys. You don't have to buy anything of theirs. Got it? And because of that, no matter what they say, no matter how they behave, they say they got power, so they serve you. Remember that. Just like how the U.S. government and governments of the world serve you. Let me read this again for you guys. Proverbs 28, chapter 2. When there is a moral rut within a nation, its government topples easily. But with wise and knowledgeable leaders, there is stability. So understand that. A leader who understands he leads by serving always wins. But the leader who feels he leads by I tell you what to do and you have to fall in line, well, guess what? He's always going to lose. I'm going to catch you guys later. I am Christ, I am disciple, aka Ansel Philip. You guys have a good night or day. Peace.